everybody was fighting to get their rights. The blacks wanted theirs, women wanted their feminist rights done. You know, everybody wanted to be dealt with as human beings, you know what I mean? And so the gay culture was no different than anybody else. Up until then, the police in every city rules the gay community bars and stuff. They go up to there and they take those nightsticks and hit the door jamb, and you're supposed to step away from a partner of the same sex if you're dancing with them. If you're at a table, you're supposed to move apart and sit and be casually talking within so many feet away from each other. For whatever reason, I have no idea what that was. No one can tell you definitively, well, this is what it was and this is why it happened. There is no what it was and why it happened. It was just the right time and the right place. Because when they came to get us out of there, nobody moved. They started chanting, "Don't arrest the girls, don't arrest the girls." And something happened, either something like a boom. I don't know if it was a firecracker. They say someone threw a beer bottle. Someone else did. One of the girls took her heel and broke a plate glass window. I don't know what the hell it was. All I know is that all of a sudden, everybody was fighting. And I had learned from being in jail that if you're in that kind of a situation, the thing to do is to piss the police off so he knocks you out, then you don't get hurt. You know, because if you stand there and fight them, they will break every bone in your body. So I got knocked out early. Came to as they were dragging me, dragging me and putting me in the back of some car. And then we went to court and they let everybody go. You know, and so it happened that next night. 3 nights this went on. It changed things forever. To today, we still, as transgender people, do not get the respect from the gay and lesbian community that we deserve. It gets annoying that these gay people are like, oh, Stonewall, you know, faint and all that shit. So what about the transgender people? What about the folks that were there that were fighting? You know, we were there. Acknowledge that. I'm glad that I finally got to an age where I can just tell them to fuck off. And they can't say shit to them, but she's old. Just leave her alone. That's right, I'm old, I'm bitter, I'm annoyed, I'm angry. Y'all didn't treat us right then. You're not treating us right now. So I don't have time for that.
Hello, my name is Reina Ortiz. I'm 34 years old. My mother says she realized that I was transgender when I was 3. Growing up in a really high Latino culture and community, you just knew that it wasn't normal. I just was afraid that, you know, I was going to be turned away, but I wasn't. It was beautiful, and I loved it. And me and my mother have just the most amazing bond. So going into high school, you know, I had a lot of help from my older brother. My older brother, as keeping it real, my brother was a hardcore gangbanger, and he helped me. You know, if anybody had a problem, he was going to take care of it for me. Honestly, the corruption of my family really saved me as a trans woman. Each year I progressed in my transition in high school. Eventually, people just got used to me. By my junior year, I can honestly say I ruled that school. So the night before prom, I won like best dress, best makeup, most chains since freshman year. They had like a little boy picture of me, and then like me, like in full drag. And then they announced the winner, and they're like prom queen of 1998. It was just a blessing. It was amazing. It was just the most amazing experience because I wanted it to be. When you're a confident person, people are so attracted to that.
My name is Coco. I'm 20 years old from Kuwait. When they told me that they found out, I just started crying, and I told them like, oh, I'm planning to transition and I'm applying to aesthetic school because, you know, I want to make money as a side job just so I can fund my transition because I don't know if you guys are going to disown me or not. And that I was actually not camping, I was in the hospital because I tried to kill myself, and I took the semester off and like just basically everything. And they were very calm because they had kind of like 2 days to process what they found out. And their first reaction was, we need to fix this, or I'm gonna call like, you know, the imam, which is kind of like a priest and like a doctor, and like you're gonna have to take another semester off and you're not going back to the United States. And that kind of like just started to freak me out. I was like, this is too much for me. I need to go. I had my legal documents with me, so I kind of like hid them, and I Facebooked my friend. I was like, hey, can you like look into like asylum lawyers, because this and this happened, and you know, I'm planning to run away. I always found it really hard to communicate with my dad. So when my mom was talking to me, I started crying. I was like, I'm scared of you. Like, I don't know, like if I should eat from your food, because I don't know if you're putting hormones to man me up. Then she started crying, and did something happen to you as a child? I was like, no, like it's not your fault. Like nothing happened to me as a child, but as long as I can remember, is even when I went through puberty, like, and here again, kind of like my mind mixing, like, you know, sex and gender all at once, but I've never, like, you know, visualized, like, you know, a woman, you know, it was always like a man, and that's how I've always felt. And I can't tell that to my father, because I can't imagine, like, especially coming from that culture, like a son telling his father that, oh, you know, I don't feel sexually aroused to women, but only to men. It's like, I don't know, I can't put myself in his shoes. So my mom was like, you know what, at the end of the day, it's your decision. Like, you can do it now, or you can wait for us, like, to die, then you're gonna do it. So at the end of the day, you're either gonna do it or not. But think about it, kind of write a list, you know, advantages of disadvantages of staying as you are, or kind of like changing. And you know that if you change, like, you won't have any family or friends or a community, because she knows, like, one of my biggest fears is not finding a place to belong. And she was like, okay, we're gonna let you go back, but as long as you promise me that you won't, like, act on your desires, because I feel like they understand who I am, but to them, that my life purpose is not to act on my desires. That's my struggle, and that's my test from God.
I started rapping at a very young age, probably at the age of maybe 9. I started recording professionally at the age of 15, and people loved me. You know, I was a really wise and witty, lyrical female MC. I was almost signed at one point. I performed on 106 in Park. So, like, I got up there, I think, and I said I was almost signed. None of my record contracts ever became finalized, because one of the things that I refused to do was to change my look. They wanted me to wear dresses and tight jeans and a hair weave, and at the time I still identified as butch. But that just wasn't me. I refused to change, so I didn't get signed. I came out with 5 CDs, had them in stores, online, and then I transitioned. Right now, I'm 2 years in my transition, and I feel like I'm starting from scratch almost. I have tons of music, but it's all pre-T. I still have kind of like my old fan base who know me from before, so they're transitioning with me, you know, and are getting used to that sound. And then I have new fans, and I don't look like your average male rapper. I mean, I don't sound like your average male rapper, so people are kind of figuring out how to take me. Is he gay? What? What's going on, you know? To love your complete story. whether you identify with that gender or not, it's still you. Those were years of your life. That was time spent. And it still made you who you are today.
You send me peace and blessings before you never been to heaven. I feel it in my bones. I feel it in my bones. I feel it in my bones. Love Jones, baby, come on, yeah. She looked to me in the eyes, asked if I like to fly. I never felt a high so right. She put a spell on me. We danced up to the moon, melted into midnight blue. Addicted to the way she grew. She put a spell on me.
After 7th grade, from that time on, I entered a time when what I was actively trying to do was manage the dissonance that the world felt with me. And so I sort of actively tried to figure out, okay, now I'm sensing that others around me, that I had a lot of room as a kid, and now the walls are sort of closing in, and how am I going to manage this? And so I embarked on a plan of, well, how will I not make other people comfortable, but what's the minimum that I can get by doing and feel okay with myself and feel authentic enough and not too strangled? And how much can I get away with and still make a way in the world where I feel that I'm going to be marginally okay? And so that, as you can imagine, led into a string of choices that I now look back on and say probably weren't so good. But in terms of wanting to surround myself and be in a relationship with people who would overlook or forgive that gender variant part of myself, rather than want to be in a relationship with me or be friends with me because of it. To believe that someone would want to be with me who I really am, I can't believe that. And so I'm willing to settle. It built the best life I never wanted with a very nice person. We had built a family, despite the fact that it was logistically not very easy. We were living in a place where it logistically was not very accepted, even if people perceived us as lesbians. And it was clear that our relationship had sort of run its course. And for me, on top of all that was, and here's that one thing that my ex was so willing to overlook, and that all of a sudden became center stage for me. When we were first getting to know each other, it was difficult to quantify these things in words, and we used to draw pictures like on napkins and stuff and placemats. And we would try to, at one point the person who became my partner was doodling like a picture about her orientation. And it was like, when I saw it, it was like the inverse of if I was doodling my gender identity. And so I took a pen and I sort of drew out, she's a much better artist, but I sort of drew out my gender identity, and literally you could like put them together and they could like kiss, and it would be, we didn't do that, but they were complementary. And I was like, it had never occurred to me that there would be such a person in the world. And obviously there's more than one. So for anybody that hears this,
taken them?
No, for anybody that's hearing this, I know that there's more than one, because I have met other people like that too. But that, I think, was the moment where I was like, wow, like it's your unique orientation and my unique gender identity appear to be rather complementary. And then I think I said, maybe we should go on a date. So that's the rest is history. But yeah.
I was put into like a developmental kindergarten type, Head Start type of thing, so I never had normal kindergarten. My mom used to take me to every psychiatrist, psychologist, and put me into MRIs, just to see what was wrong with me. And like, living from 7 to like 11 years old, didn't understand what was going on. That relationship with my mom totally severed when I was in, when I started 7th grade and we moved to the north side. And, you know, my mom I didn't have, like, growing up, I didn't have that much freedom as other folks. I, you know, was basically was left alone in the house. You know, my grandfather beat me, type of stuff. I was basically a scapegoat to everything because, you know, I learned differently from other folks, you know. I couldn't run well. I wasn't racist as well, so I couldn't run well as other folks. Couldn't ride a bike or do anything, you know, as normal kids would do. You know, I was told by my mom, you know, that, you know, you can't be queer, you can't have a disability, that's not normal. You know, when I turned 21, I read a book and it was called LGBTQ People with Developmental Disabilities or Mental Retardation. And it was by a man who ran a LGBTQ and disabled support group in Vermont. And I read all these stories. They were mostly from older people, individuals, and I was like moved, and I was shocked by it. It's like, how, dude, this is what society treats people with disabilities, especially those who are, you know, identified as, you know, the whole rainbow alphabet, I would now say, let's put it that way, the rainbow alphabet. And, you know, and I was, you know, I was only saddened, but, like, more uplifting, because I felt like, I always thought I was the only person, you know, I felt so isolated. It's like, no, when I read that book, it, you know, it really moved me, and, you know, I wanted to see, and it kind of, like, woke me up to, it was like, you know, I want to, you know, I want to fight the abuses of power against people with disabilities. Yeah, it's like, it's 2011, the time is now. I'm actually I'm part of an organization in Chicago called Gender Just, which is, you know, a nonprofit LGBTQ organization. We, you know, basically build you know, mostly grassroots organizing, you know, developing leaders through that on the basis of, you know, economic, racial, and gender justice within the LGBTQ community. There's one we did the forum, that was in June 2009 with, when Ron Huberman was the CEO of Chicago Public Schools, and, you know, I kind of heard so much about him because he, you know, he used to be president of the Chicago Transit Authority, and, you know, and this was when I started on the Safe and Affirming Education campaign that was, you know, up and new, and I was super nervous about speaking in front of a crowd and, like, telling Huberman, who was standing right on the side of me, you know, what I really want. You know, I want these kids in these TPS schools to not go through the same crap I did in high school, being bullied, being marginalized, being pushed away by both students and faculty and staff, because, you know, not just my disability, but, like, you know, my gender identity and expression and my sexual orientation. You know, I didn't want them to feel the same way I did, and there was, like, too many kids, you know, committing suicide because they felt lost. I don't, you know, I basically literally told Huberman that, you know, and, you know, it was a very profound moment for me, because it was like the first time I spoke to a big time politician that I normally see on, you know, on the Channel 5 news. It blew me away. I didn't think I would have, like, the immense guts to talk to somebody like that. The more, you know, the more we work on these issues, such as, you know, economic, social, and racial justice, if it has to do about unions, if it has to do about immigration, if it has to do about, you know, artists' rights or whatever, or sex workers' rights, you know, people have a right to be accepted and feel, you know, positive within themselves.
So I started my journey. I started trying to attempt to take hormones. And at the time, I exhausted every single youth organization that dealt with distributing hormones to trans women. Like I remember I went to one program and I did 14 weeks, and the lady said, "Oh my God, you're smiling, Chanel. Oh my God, I'm so happy for you. Why are you smiling?" And I said, "Girl, it's been 14 weeks, girl. I'm about to get my hormones." And she said, "No, you had one session, and then you said to your family. I feel that you need to work on your family situation first before we decide to do hormones." The counseling I did with you for 13 weeks, that was family counseling.
Once I hit my early 20s, I started to have a lot of reproductive issues, PCOS, so polycystic ovarian syndrome. Band-Aid option was to put me on birth control, which at the time was okay because I was still identifying as female. When I started to transition, birth control was no longer going to be an option, so we switched to testosterone. Ended up last year having uterine cancer. It was stage 1, fortunately, when we caught it. Half of it might be genetic, half of it might be the testosterone. A little portion of that might be because I was on birth control for so long. And I didn't want people to think that I was weak or that I had somehow done this to myself, because a lot of people were really quick to blame the testosterone.
So I steeled myself against nursing school before I even walked in the door. I had every reason to believe that I was walking into enemy territory, where I would be gender policed like crazy and nobody would care about me if I didn't have childbearing plans for the next 10 years. It was hard to be genderqueer and queer sexual in that space, but I had a lot of support from my fellow students and the people in my cohort.
Since I see so many doctors, specialists in addition to my primary care, I've had to reteach kind of everybody. So I have to go in and with my miniature 2-minute Trans 101 lecture, they don't know how testosterone works in a female body to the extent that what we're doing.
Because the provider I was working with took it upon herself to get incredibly educated about side effects of hormone management and how to do it safely and how to, you know, what the cutting edge thing is, and oh, let's switch you from injections to oral meds. It's, you know, they were in really competent hands, and that is incredibly rare.
I had one healthcare provider who didn't know anything about queer people, and once the stirrups were involved and there was a speculum, he did not listen to me when I said, "Please stop because this hurts." At that time, I felt completely helpless. I didn't know what to do. I was still in the early stages of transitioning. Knowing what I know now, I'm a little bit more vocal. I will ask to talk to, there's always like an office supervisor. Yeah, I'm a little bit more insistent about talking to either the nurses or the doctor. Whoever I'm having a problem with, I'll just talk to the opposite person.
They only give you hormones if you were on hormones outside. So nobody starts hormone therapy inside.
They were all like 17, 18, and one of the young ladies, one of the trans girls that was locked up with, her sister was actually a nurse for a doctor's office, a private doctor's office. And she told her sister accepted her transition. She told her sister, "Listen, I'm about to go to jail, girl, and I need hormones, and I need to hook up my girlfriends." And her sister, like, pretended to be a doctor. Her sister pretended to be a doctor, and she gave, like, all these, like, crazy different prescriptions out, like, "Oh, well, yes, I'm the doctor of such and such, and yes, she has been taking hormones for such and such time, and I would like to give her 4 cc's of Delestin."
Having competent trans care for the first time in their lives from a medical professional while incarcerated, and having that care be contingent on their incarceration, How fucked up is that, you know? Finally, they have something that they deserve, that keeps them healthy, that keeps them happy. They have somebody listening to their concerns about their body and validating those and helping them overcome problems that they've had since they were born, you know? What a wonderful thing. And you can't be free, and you're constantly under threat of violence, or you have to be completely isolated in order to have that access.
I was supposed to get hormones too, but the thing about it, it didn't work for me because I was 15. I needed parents' consent, no matter if the doctor said or what. I need to ask my mom. So I had to start buying the hormones illegally from the other girls, because as you said, that's a lot of hormones. So the girls started feeling different, as well as
yeah, I mean, like, if you take too much estrogen, doesn't it metabolize as testosterone?
Mm-hmm. So I decided just to cut hormones cold turkey, and I swear I could just feel the difference. Like, I became so depressed. When I look back at my transition, I think of all the key points or bullet points of people basically stating the rules and law of transitioning. I just was like, you know, fuck that, I'm gonna do this. No, you gotta follow the rules.
You know, there are places like in Chicago that have informed consent, where you just have to prove, you can go to counseling, but you don't have to. You just have to prove that you understand what the risks are of taking hormones, and then they let you take hormones. Like, what do you think of that?
I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, for certain girls, I guess it would be nice, but I kind of like the way they have it in New York, where that's, if you say that you understand, they still make you go to at least one. Yeah. At least one, just to get a real understanding, which is what I had to do. At the age of 21, I went and I did my one session, and I got my hormones.
That's after 10 years of wanting it.
Yeah. You need family, like, whether it's your biological family, your made-up family, but you need a support system. When you are transitioning, you need a support system, because you're going to have up and down days, and you're going to need somebody. You're going to need somebody there to let you know how special you are and how beautiful you are in and out, and that no matter what happens in this tender stage of your transition, you are who you are, and you deserve to be happy. And I didn't have that.
What bothered me at my hospital stay was being in, they put me in my own room. I was really isolated. The nurses were the last people to see me if I was clicking the call button. So what a doctor can do is just to make sure that their staff is being receptive, and that this is the person you're seeing, this is my patient. So just being another advocate for me would have been great, because if they don't do that, then I have to, and I'm still a patient, you know, recovering from surgery. I had a bunch of nurses ask me if I was there for a sex change, which is totally inappropriate, and I did not appreciate being asked that. So it would have been great if a doctor had stepped in and said, you know, this is my patient. These are okay questions and these are not okay questions.